ABC 10 News at 11 starts now.
The bats will soon start swinging again at Petco Park. Major League Baseball announcing the season will start next month. Good evening, I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. Our ABC 10 News reporter Anthony Purro spoke with sports bar managers who feel this will be a major boost to businesses struggling during the pandemic.
It is the middle of June, but there is no sign of baseball at Petco Park.
When we have baseball here, there's just a buzz downtown.
Brant Crenshaw is a co-owner at Social Tap, right next to the ballpark. He says this time of year, they would have more business, but the pandemic has changed that.
I mean, we're down significantly from where we would be, last year or just a normal month.
But the Padres will take the field again soon. Major League Baseball announcing a 60-game shortened season. The Padres and other ball clubs are expected to report for training July 1st. The season will start around July 24th, reportedly in empty stadiums without fans.
I mean, the only way you're really going to be able to watch these games is on TV. And, you can come here and you can, see every game. At least it's a kind of a one-stop shop. So if you're a fan of, teams from out of state because you're an implant or this or that, we'll have them playing, so I think it'll help, just getting some sports back on TV.
Other sports bars near Petco Park echoed the same optimism about baseball drawing business back. As for the demand they could get and the possibility of crowds, Crenshaw realizes there's a pandemic but says it's tough to predict what to expect a month from now.
When all this started, we started developing plans, and then every day it was changing, so our plan was out the window. So we tried to be proactive, and we are where we can.
And with everything seemingly changing all the time, he says baseball returning is welcome change. Anthony Purra, ABC 10 News.
Let's hope it helps. Despite a recent rise in coronavirus cases, San Diego County leaders have agreed to ask Governor Gavin Newsom for guidance to resume planned events such as weddings. They've also asked for guidance on reopening hotel conferences, private events, street fairs, and team competitions. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher called this move irresponsible. Pleas were made by dozens of San Diegans who called into today's Board of Supervisors meeting. In fact, Rachel Lee works in the wedding industry and says that her company has had to furlough 90% of its workers.
We passionately urge you to allow us and trust us as professionals to help manage and safely execute events.
Once the state does give permission, the board says it will still rely on the county's public health order to give her approval. Now to the local cases here. The numbers in San Diego County, there are 198 new cases, bringing the total to 11,294. 3 more deaths have also been reported since yesterday, bringing that total to 341.
A pharmaceutical company with labs in San Diego just landed a $71 million contract with the federal government to help deliver a COVID-19 vaccine. Inovio Pharmaceuticals is currently in phase 1 of a study for a potential vaccine. It also produces a device that would be used to administer the vaccine once it's ready. The contract with the Department of Defense would help scale up production of that device. Inovio says it will report on its phase 1 findings very soon and begin phases 2 and 3 later this summer.
There are new coronavirus concerns tonight as the nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says there is a disturbing surge of COVID-19 infections here in the U.S. New records were set tonight in Texas, Arizona, and Florida. ABC's Rena Roy tells us why Dr. Fauci is warning the next few weeks are critical.
21 states across the U.S. are seeing a surge in hospitalizations, including Arizona, which has a 20% increase. President Trump there tonight for a campaign event, thousands packing into this Phoenix megachurch to see him, many without masks.
The person feels like they don't need to wear a mask. I don't think that they should be forced to wear a mask.
I don't wear a mask, even though I have my immune system is a little compromised because I'm a breast cancer survivor.
Right.
The president claiming the virus is nearly over with.
We're doing so well after the plague. It's going away.
But his top health advisor says otherwise.
You should not congregate in crowds. You should keep distance. If you do, please wear a mask.
One Arizona doctor whose hospital saw a record rise in COVID-19 patients in the last day has called Trump's rally a super spreader event.
Mass gathering at this time is not safe.
Texas also setting its own records, reporting more than 5,400 cases in one day. Children's Hospital in Houston is now taking adult patients to free up beds elsewhere. Florida, another hotspot. The governor acknowledging the recent surge points to an escalation in transmission over the last week or so, now cracking down on bars defying rules.
If you go in and it's just like mayhem, like Dance Party USA, and it's packed to the rafters, that's just cut and dry, and that's not just an innocent mistake. And so I told him, no tolerance for that. Just suspend the license.
And Washington State's governor says in Yakima County, the hospital system is at capacity and there are no rooms available. Patients are being taken elsewhere for treatment, and face coverings will now be mandatory statewide to help limit community spread. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
It could be up to voters to decide whether the city of La Mesa should establish a police oversight commission. Tonight, the City Council discussed a recommendation from the Citizen Public Safety Oversight Task Force to place a measure on the November ballot. And several members of the public urged council members to act now instead of waiting for a ballot measure. The City Council passed a motion to direct city staff and the city attorney to give advice to the task force to help them decide whether or not this proposal should be a ballot measure. The deadline to create a ballot measure is July 28th. And the county is taking steps toward law enforcement reform and tackling racial injustice. This afternoon, they passed a series of proposals that include sending crisis response teams to nonviolent emergency calls rather than law enforcement. They will also create a county office of equity and racial justice and increase the strength of the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board. While some community activists support the plan, others say it doesn't go far enough and it doesn't provide enough funding.
And the city of San Diego is also taking a major step towards police reform. Today, the city council announced that it will let voters decide whether to replace the current police review board with a more powerful one. The new Commission on Police Practices would have much broader authority to investigate cases it chooses to look into. It would also have its own lawyers and subpoena power to compel testimony and records. The commission could also refer cases to the grand jury and district attorney. The council will formally vote next month to put the new commission on the November ballot. The Police Officers Union says it supports letting the public decide.
The Sheriff's Department paid out nearly $2 million in overtime costs as deputies covered protests over an 8-day period from May into June. And our Team 10 investigators filed a public records request for that information. The Sheriff's Department says deputies and staff worked more than 24,000 hours during that time. The department also canceled any vacation and time off that was scheduled. Team 10 has also filed a public records request for the San Diego PD over these overtime costs. We've not yet received that information. And not surprised, that is how parents and community members in the Sweetwater Union High School District are reacting to the state audit released last night. Well, the audit found there was evidence of fraud or misappropriation of funds within the district. Our ABC 10 News reporter Laura Acevedo is joining us live from home. And Laura, parents say they knew something was going on.
Kimberly, they did, and they told me that it is their kids that are ultimately paying the price, and now they tell me some of them want the current board to be removed.
I don't do numbers, and I looked at the budget and I said there's something wrong here.
Maddie Adotto attends nearly every single Sweetwater District Board meeting. She's done so for years, warning the board something wasn't right.
Most of the members of the board were very arrogant, and they didn't want to listen.
Monday night, the Fiscal Crisis Management Assistance Team released the findings of an independent audit showing significant evidence of fraud or misappropriation of funds, accusing the board of deliberate omissions of material information and of relying on inaccurate financial information when approving salary increases, resulting in pay raises they couldn't afford.
It's contracts and things that just weren't investigated sufficiently and money thrown away.
The district first self-reported a $30 million budget shortfall in September 2018. Since then, teachers were laid off, class sizes grew, and bus routes were cut.
It should fall on the school district's upper management. It should fall on them to really make sure that that district's looking out for their kids.
Nadia Keen Ayub's son goes to Eastlake High. Her son's classes were impacted.
And those AP classes were made bigger, some of them were cut.
This is not the first time Sweetwater has been in trouble with their finances. In 2014, the district's former superintendent was sentenced to 7 months in jail for his role in a corruption scandal.
Corruption is like inbred in that, it's in the culture, and it shouldn't be.
Now parents want sweeping change.
My hope was that we got new board members in place, and those new board members could make the difference that we need.
Now, in a statement, the district's spokesperson told us that they are reviewing the audit's results and recommendations, saying they take the report seriously and are determining their next steps. Laura Acevedo, ABC 10 News.
Laura, thank you. A man accused of stabbing another man to death outside a Pacific Beach 7-Eleven will stand trial for murder. Prosecutors say that Desmond Williams got into a fight with Sean Snellman in front of the 7-Eleven. This is on Mission Boulevard near Grand last year. Things escalated and Williams allegedly stabbed Snellman. He faces 26 years to life in prison if convicted.